Well, James, thank you for coming on. We've brought you back on the show. I think it was actually this time last year that we had you come on the Bean Talking show. But for people, I guess, that didn't listen to the first time around, you have an author and international speaker. You've written the book Think and Grow Rich: The Legacy, which takes the principles of the book Think and Grow Rich and brings them into the modern day. You are now working on an amazing new project in Mastermind. You love winning every single day and teaching people how to do that. But that's my sum up of yourself. But for, people, again, listening along that didn't know you or haven't listened to the first one, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, it's awesome to be back here on the Bean Talking show. This is great. I can't believe it's been a year. Time flies. So I grew up in Brisbane, in Australia, where I live. So if you detect a mild twang for any of my words, it's because I'm used to doing a lot of American podcasts and media. Over here, I can usually catch myself straight after it happened rather than before. But I grew up in Brisbane, Australia for the first 27 years of my life. And then after that, I moved to America, where I have been for the last 8 years now. I live in Los Angeles, and I spent a decade or more than a decade in financial planning in Australia, which just gave me a great appreciation for the importance of being engaged with your personal finance. And then afterwards, through all these various entrepreneurial projects in fitness and health, and it made me realize the importance of alignment in all areas if we really want to be successful. Often we have one goal and one focus, but if we're focused on our business, our family will fall apart. If we're focused on our family exclusively, our business will fall apart. So that is why at every speech that I do around the world now, I start off with a slide that says, each day, if you do not make the decision to win, you have automatically made the decision to lose. And when I say the decision to win, it's about what do you want from all areas of your life. So through my most recent book, Think and Grow Rich: The Legacy, as you said, that's a modern companion to the best-selling self-help book of all time, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And we've got another book, Andrew Carnegie's Mental Dynamite, coming out in May 2020, which is the original interview between Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie. So I'm super stoked for that one. That one's going to be huge. And then, as you said, the day one mastermind, starting purposefully at the end of February, because by the second week of February, only 1 in 5 people of the minority percentage who actually set goals, only 1 in 5% of the people who do set goals is still working on achieving them just 6 weeks after they were set. So when you do the math on that, it's absolutely crazy. So I thought, well, I'm going to host this mastermind, get some pretty awesome people from around the world who can work with me one-on-one on their life and their business from the comfort of their home or office. It's a full digital mastermind. And they can also collaborate with everyone else, because experience has taught me that relationships are the absolute best asset to have. And I think it's great just to have a dozen or so people who are able to share their journeys and collaborate to help each other succeed.
You mentioned something there that made me actually go, wow. And that is the new book that's coming out in May. And the interview with Andrew Carnegie and was it Napoleon Hill? Did you say?
Yeah.
That's incredible. And for people who don't actually know, I mean, I'm sure my listeners would know who Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie are, but for people who don't know who they are, they were two of the most successful, wealthy, but deep thinkers of their time. Do you have more to expand on who they were as people as well?
Absolutely. They were the real OGs of the personal development movement. So Andrew Carnegie had moved over to America from Scotland. He was a penniless immigrant. He had nothing to his name, and he was working all these crazy hours when he was a young teenager to help put food on the table. And he was shown kindness by a man who let him access his library after hours. So whenever he wanted to go in, he could sit there and read these books. And that is when he promised himself. He said that if he is in a position of wealth, of freedom and financial independence, that he would extend that kindness to other people who weren't able to go and read books and have access to libraries and things like that. And he ended up creating this enormous company. He was one of the wealthiest people in the history of civilization, and he gave away 90% of his wealth before he died, and the last 10% of it was given away straight after he died. He's funded more than 7,000 libraries around the world, and he is regarded as the real personification of what a philanthropist should do. So rather than gifting a mere donation of wealth, he taught people how to help themselves. That's why he's gifting things like libraries, things that can, outlast him and centuries and different generations. So it was a phenomenal legacy, and even buildings like Carnegie Hall in New York is as a result of Andrew Carnegie. So one day, Napoleon Hill, a young reporter, he went in to interview Andrew Carnegie for a magazine, and that 1 hour interview ended up lasting 3 days. So it was a phenomenal conversation. And Andrew Carnegie said to Napoleon Hill, that if you spend the next 20 years interviewing the most accomplished people on the planet, will you package and collate and really turn that into a blueprint for success that anyone around the world, irrespective of starting point or perceived adversity or misfortune, would be able to apply that to achieve enormous success in their own lives? Because people like Andrew Carnegie and the people he associated with, they came from these ridiculously humble backgrounds, and they knew that if it was possible for them, that it was possible for other people too. So two decades later, Napoleon Hill released Think and Grow Rich, and that's gone on to sell more than 120 million copies around the world. So I'm just so honored to be involved in creating the Think and Grow Rich film for the first time, and writing Think and Grow Rich, a legacy. And now being, I rarely stop to smell the roses. Admittedly, I'm horrible at that. But to have a book coming out with Andrew Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, and James Whittaker being published in America and distributed around the world is pretty cool.
That's amazing. And look, please do keep me updated on that one, because I'd be interested in reading that. And it's interesting that you said the conversation about going and interviewing the top people and writing it down. My 5th or 4th episode into this, one of my podcast, one of my mentors said, "You realize that's what happened with Dale Carnegie and Napoleon Hill." And I was like, "Oh no, I didn't realize they collabed on something." And he said, "Yeah, well, maybe that's something you should strive for." And it truly is. I was lucky enough to, on my 8th episode, have you come on, who's someone who's had this experience. I've then a year later had Jim Penman from Jim's Mowing come on, and another friend of yours, Greg Layton, as well, who's dealt with some really high-level CEOs and businesses. And, I really see myself, and might be me kind of letting the cat out of the bag, but doing like a couch side conversation where I get yourself, Jim, maybe Greg, and someone else on a couch, and then doing like a 3 or 4 way interview, and asking that question, like, what do you guys think the key to success is? And one of you will say this, and one of you say that. So that's that's where I see this podcast going in the future. So you got an invite to that if that ever happens.
Good. I think it's a good idea, and I think I'm letting the cat out of the bag here a bit too. I think there's a good chance I'll be back in Australia for a speech in Brisbane at the end of April. So if you want to make your way up there, then I'm sure I can put together a pretty awesome group of people. I'm not sure where we'll find the couch. I'm sure we can get one. But that's a great idea. And funnily enough, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie's most successful book and one of my favorites, that came out within 1 year of Think and Grow Rich. So I think that was a really interesting time and interesting bit of tidbit there.
Yeah, two very powerful books. I want to actually talk about the movie that you made from Think and Grow Rich, because I think it had, when we just talked last year, it had just come out, or there was a lot of premieres for it. So what was the feedback from the movie, and your process through that? How did you find all of that?
It's been great. It was a lot of work behind the scenes. I'd never been involved in a film before. So, I mean, how you shape the story to what the narration's going to be to...
We can see the chair in the background actually there.
That's right.
The director's chair. Yeah, there it is.
It's got my name on the back of it too, which is nice. But it's a bit like a book project in that it's sort of never ending. I mean, you reach a point where it's got to come out, but there's always things to do. So anyone who saw the original version, if they actually went and saw it now, it's narrated by Andy Garcia. who's from Ocean's 11, Fallout Boy, doing the music for it. I mean, it's a huge project, and just being involved with people, like Barbara Corcoran and Sharon Lecter, who wrote all the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books with Robert Kiyosaki, and is just a phenomenal woman. I love Sharon. People like Janine Shepherd from Australia, and I mean, everyone, Bob Proctor, Rob Dyrdek, the skateboarder turned business mogul, David Meltzer. There is a whole heap of really, really interesting people in here, and they're real go-getters. They're very, very kind and compassionate and just want to make the world a better place. So being, on the red carpet in downtown Los Angeles for a film premiere is with all the media and things around, it's a pretty surreal moment. But then we've been hosting a lot of other screenings and things around California and around America and around the world too. So it's just, even a few hours ago on Instagram, a friend of mine, I forget where he's based, somewhere in Europe, just tagged me in an office space that he's at. They're doing a screening of the film too. So it's It was a really great project to be a part of. And I mean, just the relationships, that is what has been the key to every bit of success and opportunity that I have ever had in my entire life. So if you can find yourself in your own life, whoever's listening or watching right now, if there is an opportunity for you where you can instantly level up your personal or professional network with people who have the success that you want, then do it, because just having that network will be worth the price of admission, straight up.
Definitely. And I think it goes overlooked how important that fact actually is. I mean, the cliche terms, it's not who you know, but what you know. The value of your network for the 5 people you spend your time with. I think those 2 phrases are correct, but because they're so well known, it kind of just turns it into a cliche rather than something you can practically do. And you don't, because I think the thing is, people then think they need to reach out when they say, okay, you're the value of the net worth of people and your relationship. They think they need to then reach out to the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world. They need to reach out to Barack Obamas of the world.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. They think they need to do that, but that's not the starting point. Like, yes, we do want to, yes, I'd love to have Elon Musk come on the show. You've got an open invite, Elon.
I'm sure he's listening.
I'm sure he's listening along, exactly. But I know that that's not the starting point. The starting point is okay, who's in your local network? Cool. Who do the people in your local network know? And then building up from there. So
it's a good point, because the people who aim for perfection just never really take action. And I'm all for being a perfectionist. I'm like that with everything. I mean, if you look at the sort of backdrop here,
exactly. You're putting my backdrop to shame.
It's comparison is the thief of joy, which is another quote that I like. So be careful of that.
Yeah,
it's when you've got perfectionism. Perfectionism is good because it gives you something awesome to aim for, but it should never be at the expense of inaction. So I like perfectionism on the condition that you still take action. That's what I think is really important. But yeah, the power of relationships, invest in it. There are people I know right now who are paying $50,000 to be parts of different masterminds and things, because straight away they get that person in their network where it's like, if you've invested this money in their program, they're going to be saying to, like, well, what do you want? Like, do you want me to write a testimonial for your book or the forward for your book? Or do you want to be introduced to people who I know to help you with your business idea? Or do you want me to work with you one-on-one to help you achieve whatever you want? It's an immediate way just to massively level up your network and completely transform your life.
Yeah, definitely. And that actually leads me into the exciting thing that's come out for you. And one of the big reasons I wanted to bring you on the show is your mastermind that you are creating. And because you've spoken to the likes of Barbara Cochran, Grant Cardone, John Lee Dumas, all these amazing names, it also means not just those people, but other people in your network you've got a good black book, essentially. Address book, probably a better term for that. But tell me about your mastermind. Tell me about what's going on with it. And I believe it's a month to 3-month program built around the back end of February. Let's have just a jam session and a bit of a chat about why you started it, what it is, and what people are going to get out of it.
Well, the Day One Mastermind is a 3-month program because often I have sort of one-off calls with people, but it's hard for me to take a really deep dive into the things that they're doing or offer them a huge amount of help if we're just sort of chatting for an hour every 6 months or every year. But this is 3 months where it's unlimited email access with me for anything you want. So if you want any advice for your unique circumstances, then you let me know because that's what I'm there for. And it's basically to help people, professionals and entrepreneurs around the world, to find their voice, build their tribe, and make an impact. Because I feel like so many people around the world, they're not living with purpose. They feel like they're treading water, or perhaps they just want to massively level up where they are right now. And a lot of people, they throw a lot of money and a lot of time at doing the wrong thing. So I'll be sharing everything that I know about success from having interviewed more than 100 of the world's most accomplished business leaders, cultural icons, and athletes, and being featured in all these different publications. So I'm really, really excited just to help people just really get clear on who they want and where they want to go. People, it can be everything from maybe I'm struggling to find my purpose. Maybe I'm struggling to create and produce content. Maybe I'm struggling to figure out what my brand is. Maybe I'm struggling to build an audience or monetize what I've got. Maybe I don't know what my goals are or I'm not hitting them. Whatever the answer is, we will whatever the question is, we will have a really good answer for it in this mastermind. We've got people from Europe. There's a social entrepreneur from Europe she's actually from Syria originally, and she's doing some amazing things in her work as an engineer and social entrepreneur in Portugal. We've got people a woman who's amazing. She's a sound editor. She was actually born partially deaf. So she's been partially deaf her whole life. And now she is a sound editor, award-winning sound editor for films and television shows in America. I mean, we've got a really eclectic mix of people from around the world. And I'm just so excited, not just to share everything that I know about success, but to get everyone in there to collaborate and share and help each other succeed. Because although the program goes for 3 months, which is a huge amount of time to make massive inroads on what people are doing in their own lives, it also opens people up to relationships. That these might be life-changing relationships. They might potentially be business partners in the future. So I'm really, really excited to do that. It's the first time I've ever done it. So I've done it at a low enough price point that I think people will get 100 times the value for it, and it's backed by a full money day back guarantee. So people can do it for the first month, and if they don't love it, so almost 35% of the course, if they don't love it, they get their money back, no questions asked.
And I think the key thing there, and it's what we touched on a few minutes ago, is the relationships. So you're bringing together a group of people, and it is priced well, but it's also priced at a point where the people that are in are going to be successful and driven and passionate. It's not like you're letting everyone in. I've seen masterminds. I won't say the people's names, but they are quite big, and because they want mass and they want volume, they put it at a low cost because they know low cost, more people, whatever, they'll buy the digital platform, and we won't have the support. We'll just give them a platform. We'll give them learning, and then that's it. And we know that 80% of people don't go through online courses anyway, so they'll just buy the thing and forget about it. And that's not what you want to do. You want to have this community of relationships, this community of solving problems, this community of people who can network and then become business partners, essentially. So it's not just you're not just getting 3 months of a mastermind. You're getting a lot more on the back end. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's sort of what I'm seeing it as.
That's right. Like I've even had people can go and enroll, but as soon as they enroll, I'll be contacting them to have a one-on-one conversation. First of all, we do it either Zoom or on the phone, depending on where they're based around the world. And if people aren't a good fit, there's been 2 people who actually weren't a good fit, or I felt like they didn't align with the values of the people that we want in the group. Now, they're totally fine to enroll, but I'll just refund their money immediately, because it's really important that we have the right attitudes and the right focus in this group. We don't want anyone who has ego or is going to try and leverage these people in a negative way. It's about collaboration. And that's that huge focus on real value. Then if you don't get massive, massive, massive results from this 3-month focus that will completely transform your life, then I'm not doing my job, and I don't want someone's money in the first place. So I'm really, really excited just to do this. And the more that I've spoken to people, the more that what I initially had locked in was to do, it'll be there's a whole heap of exclusive resources. There'll be videos that I'm doing specifically for this platform that I've never been. They will be created exclusively for this, but there'll also be worksheets and downloads. I've got a little ebook in there, how to build and leverage $1 million network, and I've never released that before. That's one that I'm super excited about, how people can build their own $1 million network and just get as many opportunities as they want. So then their biggest question is, what opportunities do they take and which ones do they leave behind? But also having the opportunity to set up group calls where everyone can just introduce each other and talk about maybe 2 or 3 of the goals that they have, or 2 or 3 of the problems that they're facing. And if we do that every couple of weeks, and we have people dialing in from around the world or submitting their questions beforehand, if they're not comfortable addressing them on the call, then there is no way that we're not going to get these results, because I just want to help people succeed. So there's a whole heap of amazing frameworks and resources to help people do that. And I'm very excited.
Very cool. Very cool. This is a sort of family-related question. I saw a picture when you were back here in Melbourne of you and your mum and your dad together. And it's quite interesting because people listening along will probably know your last name, and in the finance place, Whittaker, so your dad being Noel Whittaker. And I didn't ask you this question when you were on last time. I think it was because I was a little bit more nervous and didn't want to pry. But now we've developed a good friendship, I feel like I can ask this question. Your dad, because he had such a big name and he's such a, especially in Australia, how did you, I guess, create your own path? And I think this would be a good lesson for people who are sons and daughters of the celebrity name. Because you've really definitely carved your own path. And it's, I knew about you before I knew about your dad. So, you've done well there. But yeah, I guess what would be your advice to somebody who's trying to carve their own path? Maybe it's their parents want them to be the doctor, the lawyer, the whatever, but they want to go and be the artist.
A lot of people like these, a lot of these programs that try and help people, what they're really doing is saying you need to manufacture some story that's not quite true, that talks about how you were homeless or how you were in some death-defying situation. And that just doesn't resonate with 98% of the population. So it's a really, really good question. And one of the big reasons I moved to America is because I wanted to sort of get out of that shadow a little bit. I mean, I have an amazing relationship with my father. He has taught me the value of hard work, integrity, entrepreneurship, power of relationships, personal finance, all these different things. And it's funny now having my own child, because I feel like as children, we don't put as much emphasis on the value of experience that our parents have. And my mum has been a huge influence for me too. She was a homemaker for most of her life before she ended up going back to as a mature age student at university and becoming a psychologist for abused children, because she just wanted to help the world. So we can learn from everyone, but we're all individuals. And that's why we see people who, if they're given some level of what other people think is a huge advantage, then sometimes they're not going to live up to the pressure. And that's why we see people like the Hollywood celebrities or the children of these Hollywood celebrities and people like the royal family. I mean, a lot of these situations, it's an absolute mess. Or even very successful business people who are absentee dads or absentee mothers, and they basically have, broken homes and just not great relationships with their family as a result of it. I mean, look at the conflict that's happened with Gina Reinhardt with her family, all battling over inheritance, which probably none of them, have a huge right to begin with in the first place. So I think having an opportunity to learn from both of my parents equally around what contributions that they want to make on the world, but also giving me the freedom to tread my own path. It was only when it's amazing. Think and Grow Rich was the book that completely transformed my father's life at the age of 34. So being involved in America, that all of a sudden being involved in that project is quite an amazing sliding door moment. And he's so proud, but he's equally as proud of my brother, who's an accountant and based in Brisbane. Equally proud of my sister, who is at home looking after the 4 kids. So I feel like no matter what it is, you don't need to feel the pressure of your parents, or you don't need to live up to the legacy of your parents. You need to be your own person and figure out what you want and put the right plan in place. And if you do that and ultimately be happy, well, that's what's going to make your parents happy.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned there, figure out what makes you happy and it'll make your parents happy. So I registered my business in January. On the back end of going up to my uncles and him saying, Tim, I'd love to work with you. And I think this is a business that you can do if I show you some things. And we did a workshop. But my parents, however, they're very supportive, very supportive. But before I had that plan put in place, there was some skepticism, or naturally. My mum was asking, okay, well, you got to be compliant with tax now. You got to register everything. You got to do all that. Make sure you're doing invoices. Make sure you're recording it. All these questions of fear, but nothing against two parents. But there was that sort of lag time between, I guess, this idea and the safety of a job. But now that they can see how much joy and passion and purpose I'm getting from every single day, both of them are really, really proud. And are supporting me through this. I'm lucky enough that my dad ran his own civil engineering business, and my uncle is a business owner. He's the right other uncle owner, and auntie, and I'm able to get this advice now and support from people around me. But it is interesting how sometimes you need to be confident enough to go and chase what you love. And then as soon as your parents see that what you're doing and you're loving and you're passionate, they'll then get on board and support you in as many ways as possible. So I'm sure you found that as well.
Definitely, and it's a funny irony, isn't it, that we hate to take advice from our parents. I think it's just some part of human nature. So the lessons that your parents can teach you, you often find from other people and other books and other sources. So I think that's a pretty funny point there. But yeah. You're right on everything that you said. I think no matter where you're at in life, maybe you don't have parents, maybe you don't have these mentors, but you need to seek them out. And the only way to get help is to be clear on what you want. If you don't know what your objective is, then people can't help you. So starting off by figuring out, well, what is it exactly that you want? Because contrary to what pessimistic people say, the world is brimming with optimistic people who just want to see you succeed. They just don't know how, or maybe you're not asking in the right manner. So being able to figure out exactly what you want and then tapping into whatever audience you have right now, maybe it's maybe it's one person, maybe it's 50 people, whatever it might be, you need to tap into that. But the only way you can do that is to be clear on what you want. So that's why Napoleon Hill said that desire is the starting point of all achievement, and that the first principle of Think and Grit is actually desire.
Yeah. And I'd love to expand on that. Desire is so powerful once you get it right. What are the steps that people can take to figure out what they really desire? Because that's when we get on purpose, and that's when we actually start doing things. So let's expand on desire a little bit.
There are many ways to do it, but people are sort of sitting on the couch waiting for a knock at the door where all of a sudden there's going to be, a bag of money just outside, when you've got to really get out of your comfort zone and get your hands dirty. Life experience can be one of the best ways to figure out what you want. So I think you need to figure out, well, who are the people right now? Maybe there are some influencers or business leaders. We spoke earlier about Elon Musk or Gary Vaynerchuk, whoever it might be, but figure out maybe 5 or 6 of these people who really excite you, and then, or you're just inspired by, and then watch videos and learn more, read books, learn more about what these people do. And then maybe you're excited about the people, but maybe you're more excited about the solution that they're offering to the world. So then you can hone in more on an industry. And then all you need to do is figure out, where do I live right now? What companies or what people who I can interact with who live near me? And then you can find a way to get in front of those people, or attend events where those people are going to speak, or take some courses that show you have some level of expertise. And then just figure out ways that you can offer value to these people, because the best way to get is to give. And that's a process that's going to take a few months or maybe even a few years. But by the end of it, you'll have a very clear idea of who you want, and you'll have a whole heap of people ready to go. You'll be in the right place, even if you've got to suck it up in the short term with no pay or just a minimal pay, just because you've got to get the foot in the door to prove how badly you want it. And also having something like the Success Plan template, which people can download from the link in my bio on Instagram, where all of a sudden you write down your perfect destination in all areas of your life. You start with your perfect destination and you backtrack it to your 3 years, your 1 year, and then your 90-day goals. And then we turn those 90-day goals into action items and put those action items in your calendar. And then you set a recurring calendar notification for every 90 days just to do it again. And what that does is you can release yourself from stress and worry in the short term about what's going to happen today, because you already know how the story ends because you've written that story. All you need to do is focus on the two or three things that you are going to do today, because you know how they relate to your long-term mission. It's that simple and consistent action. That's the formula. It's not a sexy formula. It's not going to sell very well on Facebook ads, but it's by far the most potent formula to success.
Yeah. You're not standing behind a Lamborghini or in front of a Lamborghini and a big mansion. You're more about the practicality. And
that's
and
right.
I'm sure if you wanted to, you could go out and rent the Lamborghini and do that. But no, that's not who you are. That's
for sure. On that point, most people see that and they think, oh wow, everyone is attracted like a magnet to those people who are posing with their Lamborghinis, and for the most part, those people are just going to be dickheads. These people that are posting all this stuff. So you need to, I think, deep down, we have a bit of an instinct around the people that we align with from a values perspective. So you need to go and follow those things. The people who I really like are the ones who are most humble. They're not flaunting these ridiculously extravagant brands or purchases. They're the ones who are actually out there changing the world in their own way, but doing it in a humble way that helps inspire everyone else. But that's me. You need to find out what's important for you.
Yeah, the most successful young business owner that I know, sort of 26, 27, I'll give a shout out to him, Giovanni Pino. He runs a sourcing company, helps people source products from China and do things, basically cutting out the middleman. But he's one of those people that is successful and doesn't flaunt it. Like I go over and he'll be wearing a polo shirt or a t-shirt and he's just working. Yes, he has a nice car. Like it's not, he's not driving a beat up 2005 Toyota. But that's literally the only thing that he bought because he knew that would make him happy. But everything else he just puts back into the business and that's what makes him successful. He doesn't flaunt. I haven't seen him in a while. I haven't seen him in 3 months or 4 months or so. But unless he's changed, But I don't.
He's got his Lamborghini.
He's got his Lamborghini now. I don't think he has. And to me, that inspires me because he doesn't flaunt this success. And even me saying this now, he would be almost embarrassed that I'm bringing him up as someone that I look up to. But that just shows you one of the pillars to success. Even Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, you look at how these guys are spending their money and, they could have 10 Lamborghinis tomorrow if they wanted, but they just don't.
Definitely. And I think it's a really, really important point that you've just got to, you've got to be you. You've got to live up to whoever you are. And that's a really great example of what you said about your friend. And it's again, like some of the most successful people who I know, they don't need to go and post that they're flying first class or business class on a plane. They don't need to. It's typically the pretenders who are doing that, who don't really have that success.
There's actually a really good photo. It's a meme on Facebook. This guy, the first shot says like influencers and it shows him in a jet, but then it zooms out and like he's taking a photo at an expo that is like a jet expo and they're showing the interior.
It's like when you go and that someone's got fake followers and things. The moment that you can pinpoint that someone is full of shit, like I don't want to, a lot of people have fake followers and things and, do whatever you want to do. Do whatever you want to do. But the moment people realize that you're full of shit in one part, then all of a sudden they're going to start thinking that you're full of shit in all these other areas. So it's not a very good branding thing. But also a lot of people, the most successful entrepreneurs and things that I know, they don't love the reward. They love the work. They're addicted to the climb, not the view at the top. And when people ask me, like, what's it like to produce the film on Think and Grow Rich or write a modern version of Think and Grow Rich or, whatever it is, I really don't, it's great, but I don't dwell on it. It's not really a huge prolonged thrill by any stretch. I love the process of being able to create something and doing the work, and then you sort of release it and let it go, and it will be what it will be. So it's getting joy out of the climb that I think is a really important lesson for people. And if you don't get joy out of the climb, then you're probably in the wrong company or in the wrong industry or just doing the wrong work.
Definitely. One of my favorite topics that we touched on last time, and I'll just refresh your memory. You humbled me enough by saying it was one of the best questions you've been asked. Putting you on the spot there. And we touched on adversity, and I asked you, I said, one of the key themes of your book was all these people had gone through adversity and then come on the back end, and the lessons from that was their sheer disgust of, I don't want to be in this position again, so I'm going to be successful. And I'd love to go back to that adversity because, we did the podcast, we talked about it, and I then, 2, 3, 4 months later found myself in another depressive episode through adversity. And it's fine because I've learned a lot on the back end of that and why it happened. But we were talking off camera, and I'd just love for you to, I guess, repeat your case of adversity when you moved over to America, and then it led you to now your family life and being with your partner, your soulmate. We'd love for the listeners to hear that story because it was quite powerful.
Sure. Well, disgust, first of all, can be a very powerful emotion because it can be something that causes action. But sitting on your couch every day, it's not really a powerful enough emotion that's going to stimulate you to do any action, certainly no purposeful action. So that's why people tend to fail, because these things, as a result of making these bad decisions and having bad habits, over time they manifest in things like poverty, ill health, and misery. So what we were talking about off camera was when I moved to Boston in 2012. I moved over there with a girl who I'd been seeing, I think, for about 2 years at the time. And it was at the point after we'd been there for about 9 or 10 months, and my girlfriend at the time's program had finished. So she moved to New York, and I was going to join her in New York after I'd finished studying a few months later. And then it reached a point where the relationship was just didn't feel as great as we thought it would be. So I caught the train from Boston down to New York, and together we sort of made the decision that we should, have a break or call it quits or just, stop our relationship in its current form. And we still had a very healthy respect and appreciation for each other, but we just knew that something had to change. And I vividly remember the next day when I was sitting on a bus in New York. I remember looking out the window with tears rolling down my eyes thinking, well, have I made the worst decision of my life? And I was ready to hop out of the bus and go and grab an engagement ring right there. And that was it. I was like, God, am I the problem? Is this what I need to do right now? And I didn't. I went up to Boston, where I was about as far away from Brisbane as you can possibly get geographically. So I was away from the support network of my family and my lifetime friends. I had a lot of friends and things from the program, but everyone's busy and it's just different level of comfort with the people that you grew up with. And I first started that program, the MBA, thinking that, well, I'm going to be a consultant at the end of it. It's what I want to do, work for one of these awesome consulting companies. But throughout the program, it made me realize that I wanted to follow that entrepreneurial route. So there I found myself wanting to follow the entrepreneurial route, but having no idea how to do it. Thinking I was going to move to New York, but realizing that was probably the one place that I shouldn't go to afterwards. Being as far away from my home as you could possibly be, and then being single about a month before my program was supposed to end. And it was just a really absolutely horrible time in my life. And it was at a point where I felt that I was mature enough and knew enough about mindset and high performance and resilience and everything else that I should be able to get through anything. Wow, I was absolutely at rock bottom at that point during what in many ways, I had performed very well in the MBA program and was elected class speaker to speak in front of 1,000 people next to the 2IC of Coca-Cola globally at this event, which just, I haven't been afraid of public speaking for a long time, but I tell you what, I was absolutely terrified for that one because of the headspace that I was in. And it was when I had that awareness enough to go and see someone over in Boston to realize that I did need some help. So I went and saw a psychologist, and I didn't feel like she had a huge understanding for for who I was. I don't think she was the world's best psychologist or anything like that, but it gave me an opportunity to vent and just explore my feelings in a safe space. And we had a handful of sessions in 2 or 3 weeks. And at the end of it, I knew that I had my confidence back. I had that I don't know, what would you call it? Your swagger, I don't know, whatever, when you sort of you feel like you're back in your old self, you feel confident and happy again. And I knew that she didn't really understood that. But for the people who have these high highs and these low lows, 95 or 99% of the time, you feel amazing. You walk through the day with your head held high and really happy, and you are a good source of positive energy to other people. But the moment when you have the complete flip side of that, you do feel the lows a little bit harder than these other people do. And it was to try to explain to this person who was busy trying to cast different terms and things on me. Now, I'm not very good on labels. I feel like labels are absolutely horrible, especially on children. I mean, I hear all these different kids and things right now being, labeled with whatever you want to call it, because all of a sudden that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the moment I had my confidence back, it was like, yeah, sweet, here I am. I'm ready to go. I know exactly what actions that I need to take. And then 6 weeks after I'd broken up with my girlfriend, I was at a wedding in Hawaii where I met, I was the best man at this wedding and she was the bridesmaid. And she ended up becoming, we spent a week together in Hawaii, and she is now my wife. We've been together for almost 7 years, and we've got our beautiful daughter, Sophie, who's now 9 months old. We've got her together, and life has never been happier, and that never would have happened if I hadn't have gone through that absolutely horrible situation. So I think people need to recognize that their story is so much more than the darkness that they might be in right now. And in many cases, if not all cases, you have to go through that darkness to be able to become the butterfly on the other side, to enjoy the rewards of what awaits you. But if you make the decision to tap out of life, which is sadly the case for so many people, or you go through life with a chip on your shoulder, which is what I see a lot of people go through when they've been divorced. They spend the rest of their life blaming their ex-husband or ex-wife as being the biggest asshole ever. When you've got to sit there and redirect that energy, redirect that exact same amount of energy that you are using to complain about the circumstances that you don't have, to turn them into the circumstances that you want. That exact same amount of energy redirected can create whatever circumstance you want. So that's a bit more of that story, and I'm sorry if that took a little bit longer.
No, don't be sorry, because that's amazing, and I actually think that is a really, really cool spot to leave it, because that's a message for so many people that I want them to walk away with. That first of all, when you go through adversity and dark times, there is an amazing end at the end of that tunnel, and for you, the end was family and relationships and an amazing partner that you now have a child with. And that, for me, hopefully to someone listening along here that is struggling, that is going through a hard time, even myself, Tim, if you're listening back to this, there's an end process here, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So, I really want to end on that. But I've got 2 last questions. Firstly, if we know I usually ask what's coming up for you, but we've sort of touched on it, the book and the Mastermind. So I guess I want to replace that question and ask if people want to join in on your Mastermind. They've heard things that have inspired them in this show. Where can they go to find that?
Go to thedayone.com, thedayone.com, but one is spelled WON. So it ties nicely into my Win the Day theme. So thedayone.com, WON, and you'll be able to, if it doesn't fill up, we'll be filling up in the next few days. So get on it very early, people, if you're excited about doing that. And you can also use the coupon code or promo code, whatever it's called. If you type in Win the Day, you'll get 20% off too, because I wanted to give a nice benefit for everyone who's in my Win the Day Facebook group. I thought I'd give that to your listeners too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And for people who want to reach out to yourself as well, maybe the Facebook group, let's get people into the Facebook group. So that's probably the best spot to reach you, I'd suggest. So how do people find that?
Yeah, if they they can click on the link in my bio on Instagram. So if they just look for me on Instagram, you can click on the link in my bio. That'll get you access. That'll have the link to the mastermind. That'll have a free bonus chapter from Think and Grow Rich to Legacy if you want it. It's got a link to go and join the Win the Day Facebook group and the success plan template that we mentioned too. So maybe that's the best spot. But anything I can do to help anyone, I always say this, and people rarely take it up. So if you need some help or anything at all, just let me know. You got to reach out.
Will do. I'll probably take you up on that. All right, James. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been Tim, you've been James, and we've been talking. Thank you once again, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Looking forward to it.